What's going on, workforce? Brian here,
Chris here.
and welcome. This evening, if you guys are watching this on Friday, the day we post it, this is the night. So tonight we will be live with Comic Storian. Chris is going to be up on Twitch like around 6:30 p.m. We're going to be going live here at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. The event's already scheduled. Hopefully you want to hang out with us or join us on Sargatanas. We'll be house partying it up as well as we learn about the future of Final Fantasy XIV. In hopes for that hype, we want to sit here and talk about and give our thoughts about patch 5.45. Chris has been playing it. We've been doing the relic. We just posted our our DR guide. I cannot pronounce it. I keep hearing it, and it makes my brain like almost like spasm or something. So we posted that, and giving it, I guess, a good chunk of our time this week. I think this is a great time to sit down and give our thoughts about it, the good, the bad. Also, kind of weigh in on some of what the community's saying. Literally, like one of the first comments on the DR guide is, "Here's the fastest guide for the bosses here. Just don't play this content." And I just laughed out loud. I saw that, thought that was hilarious because I guess that's true. You don't have to do it. Chris, you were doing some crazy stuff today on stream. Why don't you talk about that? Let's start with Blue Mage because you were doing weird stuff with Blue, and I was like, Chris, you got to put a guide out on this because this is just too good to
It's
be true.
quick. It's quick. So for anybody not following the relic grind this time around, basically we have a split between last expansion's Eureka, where we have a zone called the Southern Bozjan Front, and we are off grinding basically fates that result in boss fates, and then there's a big dungeon at the end called Castrum. And so that's what we've been doing up until this patch. Meanwhile, you've had the option, if you just want the relic components, to go out in the world and do whatever old legacy content they assign to each step. So we've had to run Heavensward Fates, we've had to run level 60 dungeons, we've had a number of things, and now at this point we have to run Crystal Tower and we have to run Void Ark. So you have to do 15 runs of Crystal Tower, followed by, I think somebody said it's 15 or 18 runs of Void Ark. I'm not there. And so I was chugging through those. You're getting through 20, 30 minutes a run, less than 5-minute waits. It's no big deal. Stay out of World of Darkness if you're really trying to be optimal. If you don't want the variety, go for it. But just know there are people who when you get to the end, say, they're getting the achievement for like the first time they've ever been there. And when you're in things that are 7 years old, people don't remember to introduce mechanics. We just do it. And we know that group A is ads, group B is belly, group C is chain. And we know that if that's not getting done, we know how to step in and hop in with the other groups. If you end up with a group where people all don't know what's going on, you wipe, and you wipe hard.
Yeah.
And you wipe repeatedly. So that adds a little more excitement to it. But this patch, we also got Blue Mage. And so everybody's kind of aware of Blue Mage. And it turns out if you get 24 Blue Mages to a group, or just like 18 or 19, a couple of random jobs, you can tear Circus Tower down in like under 11 minutes. And you can tear down the final boss before Curtain Call goes off. That's absurd. I don't have the abilities that's contributing, so I'm a Blue Mage that's there, but I'm doing probably decent DPS. I don't know, compared to a normal person. I'd have to pull a meter or something. I don't have one up, but I know that the abilities that people are using, like, you see the boss's life move down like by individual chunks. You go to hit the trash, and literally all the trash in the room just dies, and you just run straight to the next room. So it's very, very cool. The only thing I haven't touched related to this patch is PvP.
Yeah. So I've been watching him play, and I think you said the last boss. Zandy is the last boss, my friend. But I just gotta put a correction on the
Oh,
lore.
second to last boss.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was just like,
The last real boss.
yeah, the last real boss.
The last boss, that air thing actually stays in the air the whole time on Blue Mage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it stays up and it falls off and goes back up.
That's awesome.
You're just continuously in the air.
Watching that, it actually has me excited because I now I'm like, okay, one of the things I want to do, because everybody's talking about how you go and get your relics, and no matter what, like, and just to kind of acknowledge, the negativity in the room, there's always this mindset that the community has when some of these steps come into play. I've seen this, like, within Shadowbringers, the relic conversation, like, it feels like it's a tennis match. It's too easy, it's too hard, it's too easy, it's too hard. And it literally reminds me, like, of every expansion we've had in which we've had these different steps for the relic itself. It's supposed to be something that's time consuming, but ultimately all not that challenging, with some exceptions. The other piece that we've been talking about, and I posted a video on it yesterday, was the mindset that we weren't really adequately prepared for DR, not like us, but like the community as a whole. Castrum being kind of like this kind of choke point that then there was no real reason to go back and do Castrum. It ended up basically having a community that was ready, and then a huge part of the community that says, okay, I'm ready to start now, and then automatically finding they're like a mile behind the curve, right? So obviously I would say that could have been handled better. I look at us from a content creator's perspective. It was information that was communicated, but it was like, it went, I think, over everybody's head. Like, it just was like, oh, and then in the back of, I guess, everybody's mind is like, oh yeah, like, of course that's going to be required. And you kind of have a feeling, but it's like, it was to the point where people weren't running it, like people just can't finish Bozja and the story part of it to get into DR today. So that being set aside, hopefully in the future we'll see, them kind of learn from this and make some adjustments to it. But I love the content. Like I wanted to just get that out of the way, because then on the other side of it, like DR is the best raid I think I've currently experienced in Final Fantasy XIV for me personally. Chris, what you
easily best alliance raid?
Yeah. I think
easily best alliance raid, easily best 24-man.
What would compete against it in an 8-man for you? Maybe Bahamut's Coil.
Yeah, I have trouble in my mind separating the trials from the raids, the 8-man, because it's the same number of people.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit different pacing, but it feels like two sides to a very similar coin. I've enjoyed a lot of the Eden stuff this expansion.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was delightful all the way through.
Right. The bosses are fine, but like
10, 11,
the 8-man raids have shifted into more like trial fights.
They are very trial-like.
In the sense where you're like, how do you separate the two? And it's like before with, Bahamut's Coil and with, Alexander, there was trash. There was, like you were making your way to the fight, right, and then you would have that. And so that's where I'm saying, like, in this case, because there are so many bosses, because you're just kind of moving your way through, there really aren't trash pulls in this case.
It's Eden 9 through 12 back to back to back.
Yeah. And I just, at a core, maybe it's the old school gamer in me, I really connected with that mindset, that it's something that you're committing like it could be a good chunk of time, especially if you wipe, that there's a cost to it. Like people going in and losing 50 to 100k metal not necessarily being farmed from that content. So it basically now incentivizes you to go into Bozja again to farm up metal, so that if you have a loss, that you can kind of offset it. So I've seen Bozja obviously pick up, and the hope is that my hope for this content is that in 2 weeks and in 4 weeks and in 6 weeks, it's still something that is a part of the lexicon of the player base, and that we're enjoying the content still. We'll have to wait and see. I'm really happy there's a weekly quest that they tie into DR, some reason to continue to go back in. And I'm really curious about Savage. And I've heard from when we were trying to run it, and we did it this week on stream, but that 48-man Savage is having a hard time filling. And that's kind of interesting from a sizing perspective.
For a week one standpoint, that's alarming.
Yeah, and it just makes me go, alarming. What's the solution there? Like, just because the requirements are pretty substantial. 48
It'll get an initial pop. So in 5.5.5, we're supposed to get gear that'll upgrade that, and so that'll make the 48-man Savage from now easier. So for a brief moment, it will breathe life into it. If you do not clear it then, if we cannot have people interested in dying to it now, and they only want the easy clear to get the Cerberus mount, how does that work a year from now, 2 years from now, 4 years from now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you find that volume of individuals? Maybe Blue Mage?
maybe.
Hey, we'll go in.
Blue Mage definitely, limited jobs definitely breathe life into things. They cheapen it, but in it's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like watching an old movie in a movie theater years and years later, and everybody's talking and chatting they're not taking it seriously. I saw Groundhog Day was showing the other way. You can go laugh, have a good time. Don't have to take it as seriously. And if somebody at the end's you're spoiling it, it's you had 20 years.
I guessed it on a video from Rurikon just the other day. I'm probably butchering his name. Still pronunciation is not my forte, so I apologize. But ended up getting in a conversation, and he said something that was so profound. He's like, gamers will, if left to their own devices, patch out fun in games.
Oh
because it's
yes.
like coming down to the mindset of like,
What developer said that?
it might have been a quote from a developer, but I was like,
Yeah,
holy
he
smokes.
said like you have to be careful listening to gamers because they'll optimize the fun out of anything.
Yeah, that's the quote. They optimize the fun out of anything, and it's like when we get into it, like we've talked on this channel about just like the fact that I love Bozja, because even the fact that I get 2 skills and I get to pick those skills means more to me than anything. And the fact is, like, people will defend this, like, okay, yeah, your job's your job. Every white mage is the same white mage across the board. So the only difference becomes into a skill gap. And I get it from a balanced perspective, but we can optimize the fun because I find so much fun in creating and building out my own character. You know, I get people will always worship the meta, but anytime we talk about sub jobs, anytime we talk about like systems that we would love to see and play, like I'd love them to take Bozja and make that like in the open world and just give you the lost actions at any time throughout this game. Maybe you would say that they're not available in the Savage raid content because
Sure.
we want to balance that and make that more of a competitive PvE
I don't know.
competition.
I'd love a Blultimate.
Blultimate,
Yeah,
Blultimate.
just a straight up limited job. Like, all right, we're gonna cheapen it, but it's different titles, it's different achievements. Like
Yeah,
that's over here. You want to do real ultimate, you do real ultimate, but we have ultimate with an asterisk available.
yeah. You juiced up. You using those steroids, those
You know,
the roiding blue mages out there rocking and rolling. Oh man. But I just bring that up because like I love that about Bosha. I love that about this content, and I know that I'm not, I'm probably not in the majority of the of that, but I'm just finding something very enjoyable about it. Do I want it to be better? Do I want to see some of these things become easier, like, and easier in the sense of like accessibility? I'd love to see more, harmony with the total game in and of itself. Obviously, this being a system, self-contained, isolated, so it doesn't ruin anything. But we've been on conversations about how would you do this content in the open world? And it's the fact is that if the open world balanced and funneled people into the zone, you could do this kind of thing,
sure.
and that would be requiring massive overhauls, and that kind of brings us into what we want for the future: more open world content. I love that when I'm in
Yeah.
Bozja, I see people running around, even if we're not in the same group. I love in DR, like it is an alliance raid, but I don't actually have the alliance UI up, and maybe that's me. If that is, that's cool. I'll just keep it off. But I love the fact that like there's all these people there, and then at the same time we're kind of focusing in on our own party and doing certain things like that. It makes it feel like an MMO. It makes it like, that's why I play these kind of games, is that it is a social outlet for me. And even if we're
Right.
not talking, when we'd go to the bars back in the day, like still the fact that like there's other people around,
Yeah, it's
there's a
nice.
connection,
It's nice to be reminded of where we are. I think for me, we're in 545.
Yeah.
We're looking down the barrel of 5.5 and 5.5.5, and we're looking down the barrel of 6.0 hype, and we're here now. And so I think it's time to start looking back at this content and this patch as what it means to the whole and what Shadowbringers means. And in many ways, Shadowbringers closed a lot of chapters. It started to
Mhm.
wrap up some things. It started to propose that we may be able to actually wrap up some story stuff that's been lasting close to or right at a decade. It could act as a sense of closure. But I think more importantly for me, at least for how I've enjoyed Shadowbringers, is Shadowbringers was an invitation. It was an invitation to come try the story. It was an invitation to come try tanking. It was an invitation to come try crafting and gathering. And it, in many ways, has been you know what? It didn't come out of the gate strong. Maybe you didn't like your initial taste of the game or of a certain aspect of the game, but we think we're doing pretty good now, and we'd like you to try it. And so we've really invited you in a lot of ways. And so I think when we look at 545, the people who are complaining, and we look at the people who are having a blast, I think what the difference is their alignment with their expectations versus the reality of the time sink.
Mhm.
And the time sink is never what everybody wants. Some people want 25 hours of content or 200 hours of content, and some people want 1 hour of content. And it has a lot to do with how much they play this game, and that could be because they have real life commitments or other games they want to get to, or they just don't find repeating things very fun, or they do find repeating things very fun. That drives how long that gets, whether they have an intention to get to all of it or not. And I think for me, what I wish they would do is I wish they would be more dynamic about it,
Mhm.
and not in a way where it's like, oh, well, just choose how long you want to take. It's like, no. People are going to optimize, but if somebody really is casual, then they're probably only touching one, maybe two jobs. They're probably only keeping one, maybe two jobs in whatever their form of best in slot is, the best gear that they can get access to with the level of content that they want to clear. So why not just give those people their relic? Just straight up, you did the quest, here's a relic. Okay. But for the people that want this to be a 200-hour grind, why not have a 200-hour grind? So if there's 15 relics in the game, you got 200 hours, divvy that out, whatever that is, that's fine. Okay, now stagger it. So the second relic takes 30 minutes. The third relic takes 2 hours. The fourth relic takes 4 hours. And just keep staggering it up until it hits that number so that the hardcore people that want to get their pterodactyl mount from Ishgard Restoration equivalent of craziness have that grind. But the people that just want to come touch this once or twice a week, maybe take a break between patches, aren't being penalized by not being willing to come grind this stuff when it's fresh. And then when it dies, it's like, well, that's what you get for not being here during the 7 days people were willing to clear this.
Would it have been better received if, like, as a part of the relic, that it forced everybody into Bozja, and then as the requirements got eased, it then added in the fate system that gives you the instant drop and things like that? Because I've seen that kind of like argument presented.
Where you have to get your first one legit?
Oh, well, if nothing else, because people felt, and when I've talked to several people in the community about it, is that it basically said, hey, you don't need to do Bozja to do your relic. And they're like, cool. Like, okay, maybe the requirement's efficient, less efficient, more efficient, either way. Like, I can go do fates. That's the most efficient way. That's what I'm going to do. I ignore Bozja. Oh, now you have to come back in. And so it's like the games and its system somewhat like communicated that
like
they didn't.
Catch-up mechanic?
Yeah, instead of having it to where it's day and date, so that it's just people said, why would I do Bozja? I can go do fates. Like, this is faster. Yeah. I'm going to do that. As opposed to that, like, you have, hey, you do Bozja, and then in a couple of weeks, or whatever that point is, now we add in the fates so that people can use that as kind of a catch-up and not a requirement. But I think that would just probably communicate it a little bit differently in the game, not necessarily better or worse, because, like, I found, like, I was doing 5 things in Bozja, or 3. I was farming up the clusters. I was getting experience for my jobs. I was leveling my metal. I was unlocking skills, and I was just like doing all, like, for me, like, even though I wasn't getting a drop every time, like, all these bars were being filled up in Bozja, where it's like I could go do a fake grind and like maybe I would get a little experience. Yeah, maybe that's fine. But I was like, nah, anyway, I found it more efficient actually to do the Bozja way because I was doing more things. Filling up those bars, and I love that. I love that aspect. The fact that it's leveling content's really huge for me, in my opinion. But
something. I think the question there becomes communication.
Yeah.
Because what it would feel like if you did Bozja and then without telling anybody you added fates at a 50% drop rate, and then without telling anybody you made those 100% drop rate, is it would feel like they were patching their own content out, like they were apologizing. And I don't think it is that. I think this is the intention. So by releasing it day and date, they're saying, no, this is the complete thought.
This is the thought.
And so, like, if they were going to say, you know what, it's going to come from fates later, then what they would have to do is somewhere in a live letter say it's going to come from Bozja, but for those of you that don't like this, we have plans, hold on. And they would have to set that tone, and then that would have to be repeated across the community to people that didn't watch the live letter or whatever, so that people who did resent Bozja didn't feel like, well, I got to do it now or never. It's like, no, you got to do it now, or you got to do whatever else they had planned. Now we would know that that's fates. Now we would know that it's crystal, whatever it is. They don't have to tell us that thing yet. But I think they would need to communicate the alternative if it's not going to be their day and date.
So one of the other things you've been doing on Wednesdays on stream is kind of your chilled stream, crafting, gathering, kind of obviously way more conversational because it's easier to have a conversation with somebody when you're not trying to stand it mad.
It's hands-free.
So on that note, though, you've also touched the Sky Skills Schools. Languages, geez.
Sky Steel Tools.
Thank you. So you've been able to touch that system. What do you think about that so far?
I like it. I'm disappointed that it's so easily macroable. I wrote a macro on stream myself out of, like, you guys were helping me kind of understand things and all that. And I on stream and I was working through the abilities and I came up with a rotation that was decent. And I was trying to do the proc rates and stuff. Obviously can't do the proc rates in macros. And I went back and I wrote, okay, what's the best of everything I've been doing that can be put into a macro. And I wrote a macro, and then I was using that to level up. And then I had some jobs that were actually, I had a couple that were still down at 60. I had most at 60, and then I had some at like 65 and 70. And there's a 69 ability that changes things. And so I basically have a macro for level 69 plus, and I have a macro for level 69 and below. And I was just chugging along. And the 69 below is literally the 69 plus with that initial opener swapped. And so it's just worse in every way. It's so bad. And it was good enough to level me. And that allowed me to just tap the button, and I can play WoW at the same time, and I can talk to you guys at the same time, and it's a blast, but it's suboptimal. And I think I'm a little disappointed how easily I haven't had to adjust that macro yet. I'm level 80, and I'm still using my leveling macro to 100% high quality these things. So I'm a little disappointed how easy it is. Mostly because when you go to level all the crafters, they're all the same thing. And so once you level 1, you just do the next one. And it's, oh, now it's 20 of this item, and I have all the same skills, and the same macro works, and I'm going to equip the same gear. And so like, it doesn't feel like there's a bunch of crossover yet. I'm saying all of that knowing that now I'm starting to push from 430s to 460s. I'm going to go through gearing myself up. So I'm not skipping straight to just purchasing 490s. And so as I go to 460s, I will say there is a little bit of redemption there as I start to realize, okay, I can't level this one yet because I don't have the gear. And to get the gear, I could make that gear on this crafter. Okay, I'm going to jump over there and do that. Oh, nope, that crafter doesn't have this yet. And so like the order that I'm jumping between which crafters I level, it's not just start at the top of the list and blast down. It's, no, I got to do this one first because I have to be able to make boots. And then I got to do this one next because I have to be able to make, you know, a new secondary weapon for this job.
Yeah.
And that makes it a lot more fun. From an inventory standpoint, it's a pain to have to manage the fact that I bought a hand saint tool, and then I have a sky steel tool. And so it's very much like you have an extreme weapon and a relic weapon. Inventory is the biggest pain of crafters. Inventory management is the biggest pain, but I'm liking the system. I'm looking forward to trying Ishgard expert crafts. I know I'm late, but I'm looking forward to trying it because I understand those are actually where they added the difficulty back in that got nerfed out this expansion as part of that invitation.
Okay, excellent. I haven't touched the Sky Skull Scourge yet, and maybe I'll get around to that. I don't know, my voice is like being a little weird today. So anyway, Chris, any final thoughts? Because I'm just really excited. Hopefully you guys tune in tonight and hang out with us, but otherwise there'll probably be other content creators. We know Mr. Happy Sly is live. So that's going to be great. And then we'll have Ethis, I know, coming on the 19th to kind of talk lore theories and things like that after we see what's happening. So hopefully you guys look forward to that. But Chris, like, yeah, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I think overall this was a really solid patch. It's a lot of content. So just start at whatever section's most appealing and just go till you're tired. None of this is required. Nothing in 5.4.5 is required. This is entirely just playing to play, and it's a joy to get to do that.
All right, guys, for Work to Game, my name is Brian.
My name's Chris.
Thanks so much for tuning in, and hopefully you have a fantastic day, and we'll see you tonight. But until then,
take care.